Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. In today's episode of the Power of Design podcast, I will be talking to Janet Brooks. Janet is the Director of Business Development and Marketing at Clark Nexsen, a 100-year-old national architecture and engineering firm. I enjoyed my conversation with Janet, not only because of her positive energy and enthusiasm, but also her expertise in developing business relationships, producing millions of dollars in new work wherever she goes. We talk about how to develop credibility in the marketplace, understanding your client's business to deliver real value, and the steps to grow and become a high-performance business development professional. This is my conversation with Janet. Janet, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Hope you are.
I am. Janet, you are an expert in marketing and business development in the design and construction industry. As a professional, what does it take to be instrumental in finding and securing multi-million-dollar projects?
I would say planning way ahead, setting up your team early, presenting your team to the client as soon as you're aware of their needs. Follow through for sure. Offer help along the way if they have needs on projects they're having issues with, even if it's not your project. Be there when they don't even have work. And think of it this way. If you had $1 million and you had a need for a building, would you hand that over to someone that you don't know, that you've never seen before? Or would you hand that?
Not.
Probably not. You would probably hand it over to somebody that you trust, that you've built a relationship with. And that's where it really begins. I mean, our clients are good stewards of their money, as we would be if it were our money. So you have to think of it in those terms. Would you give your money to a person you've never seen before?
Sure. And it seems to me that is proportional, the cost of the project to the amount of time you need to invest in developing that relationship and even gaining that trust.
You have to start early. If the project comes out through an RFP or an RFQ and you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, but we have great experience, they're not going to hand you a multi-million-dollar job.
You're late already.
You're late. If it's out, you're late.
Awesome. Tell me about you. Where did you grow up?
I actually am a Charlotte-born native, born and raised in the Cotswold area of Charlotte. Went to Appalachian State University here in one of the 17 universities of the UNC system. Majored in commercial design at the time. This was in the 80s. And minored in business administration with a concentration in marketing and management. I kind of thought I knew what I wanted to do, but those were the times of doing handset type. We didn't have computers.
Yeah.
So I remember my first job in my industry having a typesetter, and I came in one day and my boss had replaced it with an Apple Lisa, which was the first computer. And I was all excited because it was blue and it was really pretty. And I'm like, where's the on button?
Yeah.
So things have changed.
That's a great education because you had design, business, and marketing.
Right. And I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be working for an ad agency and doing stuff like that. And I enjoyed that. I actually did an internship between my junior and senior year in college at an ad agency here in town. And it was a great experience. I guess what it taught me, though, is that what I was learning in school at Appalachian wasn't necessarily going to feed me, and it wasn't going to sustain me, and it wasn't enough to keep me going on my own after I got out of school. So the internship itself is what boosted, I guess that's the word, my entire career.
When did you start getting closer to design and construction?
Right out of college, I worked in a regional office here in Charlotte of Kroger Save-On, the grocery store chain. And 2 weeks or a week to the year, I went to an Ad 2 Club meeting here in Charlotte. And I met my soon-to-be future boss for 15 years. She was going on vacation. She said, I'm going to have our HR people reach out to you and I want you to interview with them and I'll be back in a week. And she hired me immediately. And I was there for 15 years. And I would probably still be at that firm, which was J.A. Jones Construction Company, except after 110 years, they went under, which was kind of sad. It was a family-based business here in Charlotte, but they were a great family-based firm. I learned design. I ran a print shop, in-house print shop. From that being dissolved into marketing and then into business development a little bit more. I also ran internal communications. So I had the communication side, I had the PR side, I had the marketing side, I had the design side. But as I grew, I found that I wasn't being fulfilled with the design side that I had learned in school. I kind of liked being out in the market, talking to people. And I like the strategy side of things. I like the strategic of here's the client, here's what their needs are, and how do we make it happen for them? So that's when I kind of morphed away from the design side from a personal standpoint and went more into the business development and marketing side.
Yeah. So I guess when you were evolving throughout the years in that role, you started realizing that what you were doing, there were other things that were more effective.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny. I don't know that anybody graduates from school and says, I want to be in the architecture, engineering, construction world. I think it's something that you almost wake up one day and you're in and you find out how exciting it is.
Yeah.
And I've worked now on the construction side and on the AE side, and they're very different, but very obviously interrelated. And I don't really have a preference for either. They both have their pluses and minuses. The people that you work with are different on each side. It's just that the design side grew and I didn't grow with it. And that was okay for me. I now have people that do design work for me. If it's corporate graphics or it's a brochure or if it's an ad or if it's a banner for a trade show, I can give them ideas. I can give them the strategy. I can tell them what we need. And they're very much more involved with the mechanics of how to do it and the look of what's current. And I tell them what I like and what I don't like, but I don't do that as much now. I'm more on the, what does the client need and how can I give it to them?
Yeah. What's your role today?
Today, I have a dual role. Actually, my title is two titles. Actually, it's Director of Business Development, and it's also a marketing manager. I'm one of 4 corporate marketing managers within our firm. We're 100 years old this year. We have 10 offices. 400 plus employees, and there's 4 marketing managers that oversee the marketing portions of the firm for all of our markets.
What do you think is the biggest difference between your role as a director of business development and then as a marketing manager? What?
I kind of like both sides of it. I never want to totally get out of crafting a message for the client, which is what the marketing side is, and working with my constituents to, better proposals and better messaging brochures and ads and, what are we trying to accomplish out of a trade show? But the business development side is interesting because you also have to figure out who you're talking to, what their needs are. What is their message to their clients? What are they selling to their clients? Because if you don't understand what they're selling or what they're trying to accomplish with their clients, you have no idea how to service them. You can't think of it as we provide design or we provide construction. We provide a service to a company that's trying to do something for their clients. Sure. And you have to think of it in that manner.
Yeah. So you guys provide architecture and engineering services, correct, right? Have you found that traditional, typical architects and engineers don't know how to sell what they have?
I don't know if it's kind of in the DNA difference of people that are on the design side of architecture versus engineering. I find that architecture usually drives the design process. So you have a lot of more people that are out there in front, even more so than contractors too. The engineering side, the DNA of an engineer is very different than the DNA of an architect. And they're not as outgoing in general. But that's okay because they're very technical and you need them to be technical.
You want them to be like that so exactly, they can focus on the details.
But we've been very fortunate at Clark Nexsen to have quite a few engineers that are very outgoing and that love to interact with clients and love to bring in work and love to be that point person. So we've been very lucky to have those kind of people within the engineering side. And we in Charlotte, we have 42 employees. And quite frankly, we have more engineers on staff than we do architects. Now, is that a right balance? I don't know. It just depends on the day and the project and our workload.
Yeah.
But it's I've worked in EA firms, I've worked in AE firms, I've worked in A firms, and it's very different.
Yes.
Different personalities, different just mindsets of how they do work. So it's an interesting day by day process.
Oh yeah. When I started the podcast and I call it the power of design, which is the intersection of design, construction, and real estate. So we're all the players that we need to create the built environment. Somebody needs to design it. Somebody needs to build it. Somebody needs to pay for it. It needs to be financed. So there are all these teams coming together to do projects, and we're selling to each other. We help each other, and it's a community. And I feel sometimes that we are very focused on our own silos, and we come together, we do projects, or maybe we get together in networking events. And I wanted to create the podcast to create deeper conversations that you will not have otherwise in just the traditional setting. And what's interesting about this, which is something I've been happy to experience and discover, is the value of the brand. So the podcast is helping me with my brand, which is the story that I'm selling, which is the awareness. When you're working with your team, because I'm sure you're working with architects, with engineers, putting together proposals, getting together, preparing for interviews. People need to talk. Everybody's making an impression. How do you conceive the role of brand and team and experience? Because those are all things that the potential client is evaluating.
It's fortunate and unfortunate that architects and engineers aren't always the best speakers. So it's difficult to bring certain architects that need to be in an interview or certain engineers that need to be in an interview, while they may be technically very savvy and the best in the business. They might not be able to stand up and speak to a client. So you have to know your client. Some clients just want the story. They just want to know and feel the confidence from you that your team can do this. Some don't want to see principals. They don't want to see business development people. They don't even want to see, first layer project managers. They want to see the guys that are going to be in the trenches. And I say guys generically, men and women. They want to see the people that they're going to be working with and dealing with every single day. And they want to know the personalities, no matter how crazy they are,
yes,
or how kind of different they are. Yeah. They want to know the personalities, because when you, as a client, buy into a team, a design team or a design and construction team, you're buying into a family for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and you have to live with these people, not 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We're all on call. And if it's not a fit, it's kind of like, you don't get to pick your family, but you can pick your own design team.
Oh, yes.
And that's where it gets really important.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that they aren't the best speakers, that they don't wear ties, or they don't have the right color shoes, or they aren't the most poised people in the world. But if they're technically savvy and they come across and they know their stuff and they give confidence that we can do what the client needs, that's all that matters.
Yes. There is something I always say, which is, people don't buy products or services. I believe when you're in front of the client being considered for a project, well, the client for sure invited people they know can execute. So they know you're a professional firm. They know your experience. That's why you're at the table. And that differentiation that happens in the client's mind when they're making the decision to select who they want to work with is completely emotional, and it's all about the relationships that you're talking about. They're thinking about how do I want to be in meetings with this person for 2 years, and it's amazing how that works, because it's not even conscious in our mind how we make those decisions. It's just sometimes we feel good about it, right? You feel good with that person. You can even describe it, and that's something I try to do when I'm working with brand design projects or brand consulting projects with clients. I always want to get out what's the emotion side of what you're selling, what's the heart of the organization, and how do you project that to the client. It's not what you do. What you do, we expect you to be professional. That's normal. Everybody can do that. But that's not easy to do, because we all want to present, we're on time, we're on budget, we put the numbers. But how do you really sell yourself? Because you really need to be vulnerable at some point,
Yeah, And it really is about the people. We're in a project pursuit right now for a design build K-12. And one of the questions in the RFP is, what design build projects have you done in the last 15 years? Well, guess what? There haven't been a lot of design build K-12 projects.
Yes.
So the team members that we're putting together are people that have done design build in other market sectors together with different companies, but they've worked together and they know the design build process.
Sure.
So you have to sell the individuals, not the firms.
Sure.
And I mean, obviously you have to show where they worked together and what the situation was. But there's just, since the recession 10 years ago, there's been just different things that have happened. And there just haven't been a lot of K-12 projects out there. So it doesn't matter if it's, a bid project or CM at risk or design build. There just hasn't been a lot. And there just certainly is not a lot of design build K-12. So it's an interesting crafting of the message.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's something I think about a lot because I have a small farm. I'm trying to get, grow. So many of those projects are going to be first time for my farm. So how do you get the experience if you don't get the opportunity? But if you need the experience to get the opportunity, then where do you go?
One of the things that, and I talked about the recession of 10 years ago, and I'll bring that up again to say that 10 years ago, architects in particular, I'll just stick with that, was they were all in competition with each other. Everybody was competing. Now, those firms that we were competing with are our partners because so many firms went under or they downsized or they just morphed into larger firms that the firms that we competed against are now our design partners, and clients like that. They want a national firm with a local firm for a specific project. So many projects were left high and dry because firms just folded up in the middle of their project and they had to do something. And nowadays they want those layers. Clients want those layers of team members to know that somebody's going to be in there, at the end of the project, that you don't have a different project team at the end of the project that you started off with. So,
yeah. Is there a lot of people who want to pursue a career on what you do? Have you found people with the skill sets and the drive to do it? Because it seems to be not very easy and have a very particular mindset and an understanding of the industry.
So that's a two-part question. I'll answer it from the industry side first. From the industry side of AEC, we are hurting for architects, engineers in particular, and construction people, really skilled people that not only have education or trades skills that they've learned through technical schools or whatever, and diversified workforces. We're hurting. And we are working within the K-12 systems, the community college systems, the higher ed systems, the graduate systems to get trained people in our industry because there aren't enough people. I mean, it drives up the price of talent. Talent in Charlotte in particular right now is expensive because everybody's getting new jobs and we're having to pay more money for them. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to get people and to keep people happy. Yes. Now, from the marketing and business development standpoint, it's interesting. I will say that since I went to school in the 80s, that the marketing side of things has definitely changed because in the 80s and before, contracts were made with handshakes in Charlotte. They were old school money. People were, doing deals in restaurants and bars and churches with handshakes and said, yeah, we'll deal with a contract. Let's get started tomorrow, but we'll deal with a contract in a month or so. It's not that way. So now everybody wants to be marketing. But more than just the marketing, they want to be a business development person because they see business development people out there at conferences and having a great time and going to super parties and flying all over the country and this and that. But here's the deal with that. You're working 24 hours a day and you're on call 24 hours a day. And you may be out and about at a conference and you get in at 11 o'clock at night and you're working on a proposal till 4 o'clock. You get 2 hours of sleep and that you're manning a booth or you're in a session or you're making a presentation. So it never stops. It's not the fun time that everybody thinks it is. Marketing is very difficult. Business development is very difficult. And you have core work you have to get done, but you also have to be out and about, and that changes every day. I've never had 2 days the same in 34 years. And you may be doing something with marketing 1 hour and it may be a business development thing the next day. So it's not what everybody coming out of college thinks. Yeah. It's very different. It's like, oh, I want to be a BD professional. I want to go into business development. I want to be the party person. Well, it's a lot more than that. I mean, you could do that for about 6 months. And then when you aren't bringing in work, somebody's going to realize that and you're going to lose your job.
Sure. Do you think that most people that get into business development, they don't really understand what that is?
I think it's important to realize that whether you're a business development professional or an architect or an engineer, and you want to morph into a project management situation or a business development situation, you can't do that out of college, not successfully, in my opinion, because you have no knowledge of what it takes to get a building out of the ground, or what it takes to get a road built between here and Greensboro. You have no idea. So you have no technical skills to talk to anybody about anything. I mean, all you can do is make, phone calls and set up meetings for your principals. And that's not what I do. Mm-hmm. I'm savvy enough to be able to know when I'm above my head and I don't have the technical skills to answer questions. And that's when I stop and I admit to a client, it's above my pay scale. I don't understand, but I can get you an answer and I can bring you the people. So a lot of times I'll be the front person out there and then I bring the technical staff in because I don't know everything.
Sure.
But I could not have started out 34 years ago talking to clients directly like I do now. I had no knowledge. And you have to have some level of knowledge of how to build buildings or how to develop projects or about financing or bonding. You have to have that knowledge to be successful long term.
That's how you develop the trust, because
Right.
they know what you're talking about.
Right. And the trust comes from saying, I don't know, but I know people that I can get an answer for you from.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
So what advice will you give to a young professional wanting to develop in that industry?
Don't skip steps. Get out into the industry. I have a 3-part philosophy of what you should be involved in. As a marketing business development professional, you need to learn about business development. How to read a room, how to read a person, how to read a community. And from a marketing standpoint, what are the technical skills that you need to do what you need to do? So you always need to stay involved with a group like an SMPS, like Society of Marketing Professional Services. That's been my go-to group for a couple of decades, in that it's a non-threatening, cross-discipline group of people that you could talk to all across the country, that you can call at a moment's notice and say, I've got this opportunity or I've got this challenge. I need help. I know you've done this before. Do you know anybody that's done that? And through, online computer systems, we've been able to trade information. So I think it's real important that whatever your group is, whatever you're doing, that you stay involved in an educational program.
Yeah.
SMPS for me does that and it's the only group in the country that actually develops marketing and business development people for the AEC industry. The other thing I think you need to stay involved in, which is my second point, is you need to be involved in your industry. If you're working for an architectural firm, you should be involved with the local AIA or regional AIA or state AIA or national AIA. You should know what their challenges as AIA professionals are, what it takes to get licensed, what it takes to stay licensed, what it takes to seal a document, and what those risks are and what your liabilities as an individual are. or ACEC if you're an engineer, or IIDA if you're an interior designer. So stay involved in what your business is. If you have engineering, you should be involved in engineering groups.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, what clients are you marketing to? What clients do you want to work with? If you're working with higher ed or K-12 or healthcare or federal or whatever, you need to be involved in their industries, not just to be in front of them to be seen and for them to see you, but to know what their challenges are. I go back to what I said earlier about you need to know what they're selling to their clients.
Yeah.
If you're working for a federal client and they have a need for a dining facility, I mean, they need that. And what is it they need? I mean, they need a home away from home. They don't just need a place, a mess hall, as you call it.
Right.
They need a nice place where people can feel like it is their home, because it is their home for however many years.
Yes.
Or K-12. I mean, you're sending off students to buildings now that, are they safe? Do you know if your child's going to come home from school? That's an issue. It's a huge issue. So what does that mean for a design firm? When the first massacre happened at Virginia Tech, we had a project for 2 months there that was the building where the RA was shot and killed. And, I was very concerned that day. It shot, bullets through our office of who's on site, who's at the building. And we had to stop everything and totally change what we were doing. We were doing a comprehensive renovation of the Ambler Johnston building. And it totally changed from that point until today and tomorrow of what design aspects of buildings, whether it's K-12, higher ed, a commercial building, a public building like a convention center, what has changed for security? Because you don't know where the next bad person is with a gun or whatever. So it has changed design.
Yeah, that's huge to really tell your clients the story. What's the value that design is bringing to you and your business, your clients. I always think of design is like money. Like you can have money, but money is nothing unless you interchange that with something, right? You buy something, you buy experience, you buy an object. That's the value, what you get out of that. I think that design is like that.
It is.
Sometimes we focus too much on how design looks, which is nice and it's pretty and the pictures are amazing. But what is that creating for someone? But
when you send your spouse out to work, or you send your child out to school, or you send your parent to a nursing home, you want to make sure they're safe from any standpoint. And it's important now. We all talk about sustainability, but the safety of sustainability and healthy workplaces and healthy living places, that's all important. Yeah. I mean, it's not just important to the people that are using those buildings, but it's important to the planet's health right now. And in this generation, we have to address it.
Sure.
And sustainability is a big thing right now. And it's sustainability on safety and it's sustainability on being in healthy buildings.
Yeah. Going back to design and marketing, business development and marketing professionals. Do you know if those type of positions are usually salary positions or they're commission or based on results?
I think that marketing positions usually start out as like an assistant marketing person or a marketing coordinator. Those are usually, in most firms, hourly positions. Then you move up to a marketing manager or marketing director, and those become salaried positions. And that's simply because you're not working a 40-hour week anymore. You're pretty much on call 24 hours a day, whatever's needed by whatever person needs you. Certainly the business development is a 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, sometimes 8 days a week position. And I don't see as many salary-based or commission-based projects on the design or on the business development side as I used to. But I do think that it's all fun and games until you don't bring in the work.
Yes.
If you're going to be a business development professional, know the business and be able to bring in that $100 million job or that $50 million job, or depending on the size of your firm, that $1 million job or that $200,000 job, whatever it is. If you're not bringing in results, you don't have a job. And it doesn't matter if you're paid by commission or not. They're just not going to keep you because your job is to bring in clients, to bring in opportunities, not just for today, but 5 years down the road. And, there's an old saying that it takes 2 years to develop a client. It's always nice to have client backgrounds and have those connections when you go to a new firm. They're going to pay for your connections.
Yes.
It's going to be a salary job, and they're going to expect you to bring in work. And that's a big deal. And people don't realize that when they say, I want to go into business development. Well, what credentials do you have? And can you bring in a next job? Can you actually bring in a job by yourself or lead a team to bring in $100 million job? And if you can't answer that, yes, it's too early in your career, and you have to take a sidestep and say, what don't I have in my skill set that I need to be able to say, yes, I can do that and mean it and do it.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a skill that if we all should develop. We all should learn how to do business development and sales and marketing, regardless of the industry. That's just a huge skill, which is clear communication, helping others understand what's the value you bring to the table, because we'll use it all the time. And I think the sooner you start practicing, the better.
I agree with that. And I think that the biggest downfall that everybody in our industry has, whether it's a principal level, president level, whatever, is finding out what the next job is and asking the client for the job. We are afraid to say, we want your work. We want to continue working with us. It takes 5 times the money and the time and the energy and the effort to get a new client as to keep the one that you're working with right now. So why not train your employees, your engineers, your architects, to ask them, what else you got going on? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? You have to ask for the next job. You have to find out. And that's everybody's job. If you're working in an AEC firm, that's everybody's job. It's not just a titled business development person that does that. And you have to ask.
Well, and we're selling ourselves.
That's not a normal thing to do, is ask for a job.
And we're doing it every day anyway.
Right.
Like every time you show up to work, you're proving to your employer that you're worth what they're paying.
Right.
You need to demonstrate that. You're selling something.
And clients expect you to want to know what they're doing. They expect you to say, if you're going to come meet with me, I expect you to tell me why I should hire you and to ask for that job. If they're going to spend 5 minutes or 50 minutes with you, that's what they want to hear. We want to work with you, and this is why we think we should be working with you. What do you have coming up? What can we help you with? What are you working on now? What are your challenges now? What are you trying to sell to your clients? What can we help you with? And if you take it from that standpoint, you will be successful.
Yeah, I feel that I don't know why, but it's very common where people are afraid to sell. And I think part of that is self-awareness and confidence, because when you think about what people are buying and when they're talking to you, the most important sell you make in your life is when you buy yourself, when you believe in what you are, what you do in your team, in your company. And once you believe that comes across.
I'm a big proponent on don't walk into somebody's office and say, what can you do for me? You have to give. You've got to give and give and give, not just to your clients, but to your partners, whether it's a construction firm or a partnering architectural firm or whatever kind of firm you're working with. You have to give to them.
Yeah.
Send them articles about their business, send them articles about their competitors, talk to them about what their hot buttons are, and stay in touch with them. Don't go see them once a year. Set up a process where you're seeing them 2, 3, 4 times a year, even if there's no work, because eventually they will need something and they'll remember that when they didn't have work, that you were there.
Yeah.
And then they're going to look at the next guy that walks in and say, oh, now that we have work, you're introducing yourself. So they don't want that. They want to know people that have been with them for years.
Sure.
And you can't be all things to all people. And you have to narrow that down. You have to narrow your margins down. You cannot be everything to everybody. So you spread the wealth. You get a lot of people involved on the business development side, so to speak, and you stay in touch with your clients or potential clients or past clients. Don't ever leave a past client and don't follow up with them. What if your building has an issue a year later or a year after warranty? You have to be there. You have to still service that client because they will have more work.
What would you say is the biggest challenge your clients are facing today?
I think they have some fears. I think the fear, as I spoke about earlier, is, having the confidence that the team they start out with is going to be the same team that finishes. Therefore, no information from the strategy of why we're even doing this building stays with the team. So I think, losing teams is a concern. Construction costs are still rising 10% a year. They've risen 10% every year since 2017. So, projects that were in the hopper, in 16 and 17, now they're having to value engineer those projects, or they're having to take money from projects that are in the future or that should have already been started, or maybe that are started, and put them on projects to finish the project. So the cost overruns are just astronomical, and it's tough. They want a job. They want it fast because the market is fast and not, everybody says, well, the commercial market's really fast. Well, guess what? Every market is fast right now. And with the technology that we have, you can turn projects fast, but you have to have the funds to do that. And public clients especially, but even private clients, they're looking for that innovative financing, the innovative financing of public-private partnerships, or everything you can think about is happening right now because there is no funding. So everybody's looking for funding. So that's a challenge, certainly on the public side. I think the talent, we talked a little bit about the talent. The talent market's tight. There aren't a lot of young people going into this industry, and we're all trying to figure out why and what to do about it. And we haven't found the right answers yet. I think that we're starting to carve some of that by, doing specific career fairs for K-12 students and doing shadowing programs that we're doing at Clark Nexsen, and doing mentoring programs for them. But we're not seeing the input of students coming out of college or trade schools that we need. And that's going to be a problem. There's going to be a downturn because no matter what technology is out there, it takes hands. It takes individual people building buildings or designing projects. Every computer has to have somebody run it.
Yeah.
It's not like any of that's going away. So you have to have the talent, and the talent war is tough. Keeping employees happy is tough. Even our clients are struggling with that. Keeping facility staff in order and consistent. That's tough for them because they have to train facility staff, people that are, owners reps or client reps to run projects with AEC teams. They're having trouble hanging on to people because there's just so few people in the market to choose from.
Yeah. How does the power of design impact what you do and who you are?
I think, now, do you mean from a standpoint of personal or from the industry?
All of them.
All of the above? Okay.
Yeah.
Personally, I love this industry. I've been in it 34 years. It's one of the few industries that you can take your kids to and your parents to and your friends to and say, I remember that when I was on the top of that building, and now it's, 2 banks later. And, I can remember the topping out, and I can remember, what's underneath the ground. And it's an industry, and it's an exciting industry that you can show your kids, this is what I did, and it's still there. Mm-hmm. Or you could talk about the history of a building where you totally renovated a federal building and brought it back to life. We're going through a lot of the 60s renovations or replacements right now because quite frankly, the materials and the buildings have come to the end of their life cycle. Mm-hmm. And that's a big market for everyone right now. Major comprehensive renovations, systems have improved. The design for the industry is different. It goes from, mid-century modern of the 50s to, crazy times of the 80s where I think all the architects were on drugs to, now it's a really clean line design, but you also marry that with the very traditional Neo-Georgian design on many higher ed campuses or federal buildings. So it just kind of depends. So you kind of have to know a little bit of it all. And I think the mixture is kind of nice. I like all of that. I think it all has its own purpose. It all has its place in the community. I like seeing a lot of the different colors that we're seeing. I think color has become a a big study, if you will, for our industry, like what colors make people angry and what colors are soothing. And it depends on the industry that you're working in. So I think that the color aspect of design has really changed. And I think, with design, again, comes the sustainability. And are we building buildings that are sustainable, that are healthy for our clients? And it doesn't have to be healthy because it's a hospital. It has to be healthy because it's a K-12. And is it safe? Is it healthy? Are the systems that we're putting in there, the HVAC systems, are they sustainable? Are they going to be safe? Is there clean water? Is there clean air? Are we building this on top of an area that's got bad soil? Do we need to take the bad soil out and replace it? All of those things. I mean, we're uncovering a lot of things because we're running out of space. So as we kind of move out into areas that haven't been touched for decades, we're finding lots of stuff in the ground and we have to clean it up. And, hopefully we can find those things before we're too far into it. But we just, we're doing a project out at UNC Charlotte and it was decades ago. And, we're finding things and you just have to clean it up as you go. And it's a need. I mean, it's a responsibility of a design firm to take care of those things and to be honest that, hey, we have some issues and to talk about them and find a solution.
Awesome. Well, Janet, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your time being here and sharing your wisdom and experience. I'm very happy to meet you and I look forward to stay in touch.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and OSA Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at the Power of Design podcast. Thank you.